There comes a moment in life when the noise of the world begins to feel like static, like a distant echo that no longer speaks your language. You walk through the same streets, enter the same buildings, listen to the same conversations. But something in you has shifted. What once excited you no longer sparks your fire. The things that once defined you, titles, possessions, recognition, begin to feel like costumes worn for a play you no longer wish to perform in. This isn't depression. It's not burnout. It's not even fatigue. It's awakening. It's the soul's quiet way of saying, you've outgrown this version of yourself. You might sit in a crowded room and feel completely alone. Not because you're unloved, but because your spirit no longer connects to surface level living. You long for depth, for peace, for something real, something eternal. The conversations about gossip, trends, and comparison begin to sound like a foreign language. You're no longer interested in being seen. You crave being aligned. This is how the divine begins to pull you inward. This is what it feels like when your soul starts to recognize the difference between temporary pleasure and lasting purpose. One day, you might be driving to work, same road, same radio, same routine, and suddenly feel a wave of emotion rush over you. A thought might whisper, there has to be more to life than this. That whisper isn't doubt, it's direction. It's a divine nudge saying, you're ready for more. You begin to notice beauty in silence. You feel closer to God not in a crowd, but in solitude. You sit under the sky and feel watched over. You wake up at strange hours, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., not to scroll, but because something higher wants your attention. You start craving morning light, fresh air, quiet moments. Not because you're bored, but because your spirit is finally hungry for what it was made for: alignment. At this stage, your goals begin to evolve. You no longer ask, what do I want to achieve? Instead, you ask, what am I here to fulfill? That subtle shift is powerful. It means your life is no longer being lived on autopilot. You're stepping into intention. Maybe you used to work for money, but now you seek purpose in your work. Maybe you used to chase attention, but now you seek connection. Maybe you used to live for approval, but now you walk in quiet confidence, knowing your worth is not up for debate. This shift can be lonely, but it's not emptiness. It's sacred space. Space that the divine begins to fill with clarity, strength, and vision. You begin to trust your intuition more than opinions. You choose rest over noise. You begin to walk away from environments that no longer honor your spirit, and you don't feel guilty for doing so. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. A real life example. Imagine someone who spent years working in a high-status corporate job, chasing deadlines, living in constant pressure, getting applause for every milestone reached. But one morning, they wake up and feel numb. They sit at their desk and feel invisible, even when people are praising them. That person isn't lazy, they're awakening. Something deeper is calling them. They may not know what the next step is, but they know this can't be all there is. That moment of awareness, no matter how quiet, is divine. It's the beginning of sacred alignment. And maybe your version of this isn't quitting your job. Maybe it's the moment you realize You don't want to fight anymore. Not with others and not with yourself. You want peace. You want purpose. You want to live gently but powerfully. That's when you start hearing the divine clearly. Not outside of you, but within you. Your prayers begin to change. No longer are you asking for things. You start asking for guidance. You start saying, "Show me who I really am. Show me where I need to go." And life responds, not always with loud miracles, but with subtle confirmations. You meet someone who speaks to your spirit. You hear something in a book or a video that answers a question you didn't even know you asked. You begin to see repeating signs, number patterns, dreams that feel too vivid to ignore. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. So yes, you may feel disconnected from the world, but you'll start feeling deeply connected to something greater, something eternal. You'll wake up and feel watched over. You'll cry not from sadness, but from truth resonating so deeply inside you that your body doesn't know how else to respond. You'll realize that the things you're losing were only meant for the version of you that's now evolving. You'll start walking with less fear because you're no longer living for approval. You're living for purpose. You'll begin to understand that success isn't what the world applauds. True success is soul peace. When you reach this place, you're not just living, you're remembering. You're not just surviving, you're aligning. This is how you know. You may feel disconnected from the world, but you've never been more connected to the divine. And that connection will take you further than anything the world could ever offer. There comes a point on your spiritual journey where connection begins to feel very different. It's no longer about how someone looks, talks, or presents themselves. It's not about status, titles, or even shared interests. Suddenly, it becomes about how they feel, how their energy enters a room, how their presence affects your peace. This isn't judgment, it's discernment. You're not being distant, you're being spiritually aware. In earlier stages of life, many people chase company to avoid loneliness. They surround themselves with whoever is available, whoever entertains them, or simply whoever shows up. But when your spirit starts to evolve, you no longer crave many. You begin to crave meaningful. You start to realize that the energy around you is not harmless background noise. It's either feeding your soul or draining your spirit. This is how you begin to attract souls, not just people. You meet someone for the first time, and without a word spoken, you feel them, their peace, their pain, their truth, their tension. You feel it before they speak, and no smile or charisma can mask it. This isn't a psychic ability. It's spiritual sensitivity. And it's a sign you are awakening. You're not just seeing with your eyes anymore. You're sensing with your soul. You find yourself pulling away from loud personalities that mask emptiness. You're no longer fooled by charm. You begin to crave sincerity, stillness, and sacred honesty. And when someone lies, even gently, you feel it, not in your head, but in your chest. You don't know how you know. You just know. It's in those moments you realize energy doesn't lie. In your daily life, this can look like choosing solitude over shallow company. Maybe your phone used to buzz with messages, but now it's quiet. not because people disappeared, but because your energy evolved, and only truth can stay where there is growth. You don't mourn the loss. Instead, you notice the presence of something far more valuable: peace. Your friendships start to shift. You don't have time for performance or pretense. You'd rather have one conversation that heals your spirit than 100 that waste your breath. You no longer chase people who don't see you. You understand now that alignment cannot be forced. It must flow. And when someone is aligned, the connection is immediate. You meet a stranger, and within minutes, you're talking about soul things: dreams, pain, growth, purpose. You skip the small talk, you skip the surface, because your spirit recognizes theirs. It's like meeting an old friend from another lifetime. You just know them. You're no longer attracted to someone's face. You're attracted to their frequency. Real life example: think of the moment when you walk into a room and are instantly drawn to someone who doesn't say much. They're not trying to be seen, not trying to impress, but there's a calmness in them, a still power. Later, when you speak, their words are few but meaningful. They listen deeply. They speak truthfully. And suddenly you realize it's not what they're doing that draws you. It's who they are, that soul recognition. On the flip side, imagine meeting someone with all the charm in the world: big smile, confident talk, maybe even powerful connections. But after a few minutes, you feel tired, unsettled, like something isn't right. They haven't done anything wrong, but something in you whispers, "This is not your people." That whisper isn't fear, it's guidance. This ability to sense energy changes how you live. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't meant to understand you. You stop shrinking to fit into rooms where your truth feels too big. You stop apologizing for needing depth, silence, or space. You're not being too much. You're just not available for anything less than real anymore. Even in love, your heart matures. You no longer fall for looks or titles. You look for alignment. You ask, can this person grow with me? Can we evolve together? Do they bring peace to my inner world, or do they create noise? You're not asking for perfection. You're asking for resonance. This awareness also brings grace. You stop hating people who no longer fit your path. You don't need to cut them with anger. You simply release them with love. Because you understand, not every soul is meant to walk with you forever. Some were lessons. Some were mirrors. Some were only meant to hold your hand for a season, not a lifetime. You bless them, you grow from them, and you move forward. And then the most beautiful thing happens. The right souls begin to appear, quietly, gently, without effort. These people don't compete with your light. They protect it. They don't rush your journey. They walk beside you. They don't drain you. They fill you. Conversations flow. Silences are comfortable. Trust is natural. You feel seen, not just externally, but spiritually. That's how you know you're attracting souls. This isn't magic. It's alignment. You've raised your frequency, and the universe is responding. People who match your energy are showing up because your soul has finally stopped settling. You've started choosing wholeness over company, truth over attention, depth over distraction. So know This isn't loneliness, it's elevation. You're not empty. You're being prepared. You are no longer attracting people to pass time. You are attracting souls to build lifetimes. And that is the mark of someone walking their final life cycle. Not lost, not confused, but divinely calibrated to the highest version of themselves. There comes a moment in your spiritual evolution when time itself begins to feel different. Days pass, but you no longer count them the same way. Hours feel less like deadlines and more like divine invitations. You begin to wake up not to chase the clock, but to flow with purpose. It's a sacred shift from survival-based routine to soul-based alignment. This doesn't mean you abandon structure. It means you no longer live like a prisoner of it. You stop racing against time and instead begin to walk in step with something far greater, divine rhythm. This rhythm isn't taught in school. It isn't listed in calendars or planners. You feel it when you breathe deeply. You feel it when you pause and listen. You feel it when your life starts making sense without needing to make noise. In the past, your days may have looked like a checklist. Wake up, rush, perform, prove, repeat. You were measured by how fast you could produce, how busy you appeared, how much you could squeeze into every 24 hours. But now something in you has matured. You've tasted silence and found it more nourishing than applause. You've touched stillness and realized it holds more answers than your most calculated strategies. You begin to operate in what some would call divine timing. But it's not mystical or abstract. It's deeply practical. You start trusting that when something is truly for you, it won't require forcing. That the right doors open with presence, not panic. That what is delayed is not denied. It's simply developing in the unseen. Real life example. Imagine someone who used to spend every waking moment striving, building a business, chasing promotions, networking endlessly, barely sleeping. They lived off caffeine and urgency. They thought success was speed. But one day, their body broke down. Fatigue hit like a wall. Silence fell. At first, it felt like failure. But in the stillness, they heard something they never made space to hear before. There's a better way. That person learned to slow down. Not because they gave up, but because they woke up. They learned that alignment is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, when it matters, how it matters. It's about trusting the unseen guidance that says, now is the time to move, or now is the time to wait. And listening to that voice changes everything. You start to notice moments of flow. When you speak and the right people listen. When you rest and opportunities still find you. When you create without pressure and magic still happens. It's not luck. It's the result of walking in alignment, not anxiety. You realize you don't have to control everything. You just have to respond to timing with wisdom and faith. The right idea will come. The right moment will arise. The right person will appear. And they won't need to be chased, only received. In this space, your morning becomes sacred. Not rushed, not robotic. You may begin the day with breath, gratitude, stillness, because you understand that how you start affects how you move. And the more your spirit is centered, the more everything else begins to align with it. You start measuring time differently. Instead of how many hours did I work? You ask, how aligned was I with purpose today? Instead of, how fast did I finish? You ask, was this done in peace or in panic? Because now you understand progress made in stress is never sustainable. But progress made in peace, that's power. Even your language begins to change. You no longer say, I don't have time. You say, it's not aligned for me right now. You take ownership of your yes and your no, not out of arrogance, but from awareness. You understand your energy is sacred and not everything deserves your urgency. Others may still live by the clock, but you've begun to live by calling. And yes, it may look strange to the outside world. While others race, you pause. While others hustle, you listen. While others doubt, you wait in trust. But it's not laziness, it's deep spiritual efficiency. You've learned that moving fast in the wrong direction only takes you further from your purpose. You find beauty in timing. You witness how certain things didn't work out before. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you weren't ready. You see how delay protected you, how waiting matured you, how detours refined you. And you begin to walk forward not with fear, but with quiet confidence. You are not early. You are not late. You are right on time. Think of how nature moves. The sun does not rush to rise. The moon does not beg to shine. The seasons don't argue with each other. Everything unfolds in divine timing, and yet everything gets done. That is how your soul longs to live, synchronized with divine design.